Um, if you are listening to this right now and you happen to own a business, the idea of selling it probably feels a lot like planning a massive high-stakes surprise party.
Yeah, that is a really good way to picture it, actually.
Right, because you are, like, orchestrating everything behind the scenes. You're getting the caterers, hiding the cars, except in this scenario, if the guest of honor, or I guess your staff or your competitors, find out about the party before you are ready, I mean, the entire house basically burns down.
It's terrifying, but it's an incredibly apt way to frame it because the moment that secret gets out too early, the actual monetary value that you've spent years or even decades building can just evaporate almost overnight.
Which is exactly why we're dedicating today's deep dive to the highly secretive, high-stakes world of buying and selling businesses. For this one, we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources. We've got M&A advisory notes, legal case studies, and some pretty brutal post-mortem reports on failed acquisitions.
Yeah, there's some rough stuff in there.
There really is.
Yeah.
And our mission today is to decode the hidden mechanics of mergers and acquisitions. Because as a UK business owner myself who constantly worries about this stuff, keeping things quiet is it's a massive source of anxiety.
Completely understandable. So today we are going to walk through how to avoid the really dangerous traps of public listings, how to securely share your most sensitive data, and we will look at what happens when the transition goes disastrously wrong.
Because whether you are an aspiring entrepreneur or a current business owner looking down the barrel of a sale, or just insanely curious about how multi-million-pound deals happen behind closed doors, there is one core truth to understand here.
Right.
The biggest threat to a business sale isn't the finances. It's not the market or the lawyers. It is literally human nature.
Exactly. It always comes down to ego, guilt, and the profound inability of most people to keep a secret when the pressure is really on.
So let's unpack the mechanics of this. If I want to sell my business, my very first instinct, and I think this is the assumed standard path for most of us, is that you go out and you hire a business broker.
Right. That's what everyone thinks.
Yeah, because the logic is they have a massive Rolodex, they find the buyers, and they protect you throughout the whole process. So as an advisor who guides people through this, exactly how risky is that assumption?
Oh, it's incredibly risky. Honestly, introducing a broker into the mix is usually the very first major breach of your confidentiality.
Wait, really? But they work for you.
They do, but you have to think about how a broker's business model actually functions in reality. They typically charge an upfront marketing fee, right? So to justify that fee to you, the seller, they have to physically prove they are actively marketing the business.
Oh, I see, which means they have to put it out in the open.
Exactly. It means public listings on business for sale websites, places like Dalton's Weekly. It means putting together these glossy marketing packs and circulating them to dozens, sometimes hundreds of potential buyers.
But don't they keep it anonymous, like blinding the listing?
They try to. They might say something vague like profitable tech firm in the Northwest. But competitors can reverse engineer those details in a heartbeat.
Meaning your competitors, or even worse, your own staff, could just be browsing the internet or talking to a supplier and stumble across a listing that sounds suspiciously like your own company.
Yeah, and word travels incredibly fast in any industry. But the danger goes even deeper than just a leaked listing.
How so?
Well, the financial incentive for a traditional broker is heavily skewed towards securing the listing contract with you, getting that upfront fee, not necessarily closing the actual sale.
Right.
Across the industry, the average success rate for selling a listed business is only about 20%.
Hold on. If a broker's success rate is only 20%, why on earth does anyone use them? Are sellers just desperate, or is the industry sort of selling a false sense of security?
I mean, it's a bit of both. It's the accepted norm, so people just follow the herd. Furthermore, a broker will often actively block buyers from understanding a seller's true motivation.
Wayne.
Like, if you are selling because you are totally burned out or going through a messy divorce or you just want a quick, quiet exit to retire, the broker often hides that.
But to what end? Like, if I want a quick exit, shouldn't the buyer know I'm highly motivated to just make a deal happen?
You'd think so, but the broker wants to artificially inflate the price and create the illusion of a massive bidding war to justify their huge commission.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And what this actually does is put the buyer and seller in a really adversarial, highly suspicious position from day one. And if you figure this out and try to back out or find a buyer on your own, Broker contracts are notoriously watertight.
Oh, this reminds me of that case study in the sources, the 12,000-pound fee dodge. Serena's, and the lengths she went to are just staggering.
Oh, Anne. Yeah, the nursery owner. She found this out the hard way.
Walk us through what she did, because it's wild.
So Anne essentially found a buyer herself and sold her business directly. But to dodge the 12,000-pound fee she legally owed the broker, who still had the exclusive listing rights, she straight up lied.
You just flat out lied to them.
Yeah. She had told the broker she hadn't sold the nursery at all, but was merely leasing it out to be managed by a third party.
Which honestly might have worked, except she couldn't control the new buyers.
Precisely. The new buyers were obviously excited about their new business, so a local trade publication printed a press release celebrating the acquisition.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Anne saw this, absolutely panicked, phoned the editor of the publication, and actually threatened to sue them for defamation if they didn't retract the story.
Just to keep her cover story with the broker intact. She threatened a magazine to hide a sale she had already legally completed.
Exactly. People do crazy things when they feel trapped.
That is insane. But, okay, playing devil's advocate for a second here. As a business owner, I am terrified of my staff finding out. Don't I need some kind of intermediary to find a safe buyer? I mean, how do you even do this without a public listing?
You do it through a private, direct, off-market sale.
Okay.
It is infinitely safer for confidentiality. There is no public listing at all. There is no widely circulated marketing pack floating around the industry for anyone to see.
So it's just much quieter.
Much quieter. It is a targeted, private conversation between two parties who have both legally committed to keeping it quiet. You reduce the circle of knowledge down to just two committed sides.
Okay, let's say we skip the broker. We are operating in the shadows.
Huh.
But if I'm selling to you, I still have to prove the business is worth what I say it is. I have to show you my books.
Right.
So how do I share highly sensitive financial data safely without just, emailing my spreadsheets to someone who might actually end up being a competitor?
This is the critical transition where we move from the public sphere into what we can call the vault. And the mechanism that unlocks that vault is the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement.
Right.
It is the absolute non-negotiable first step before a single number is ever discussed.
See, I think a lot of people hear NDA and they picture this terrifying 100-page legal document that is going to cost a fortune in solicitor fees to draft.
That's a super common fear. And sellers are often terrified of leaks. But signing an NDA shouldn't be an intimidating hurdle. The sources quote an advisor explaining it to potential sellers beautifully. He says, it's an A4-size piece of double-sided paper. It's not War and Peace.
Okay, but does a piece of A4 paper actually stop someone from stealing my client list? Let's be real.
It establishes undeniable legal liability. It legally binds the buyer and, critically, all of their advisors, so their accountants, lawyers, consultants, to absolute secrecy.
So it covers their whole team.
Exactly. If they breach it or use the information for a competitive advantage, you have a direct mechanism to sue for damages. But even with the NDA signed, you never just email the financials.
Because email is too easy to forward.
Exactly. Email is incredibly porous. Information goes into a secure data room.
Like a highly restricted encrypted Dropbox folder or something.
Essentially, yes. You control the access permissions, you can track exactly who opens what and when, and you can revoke access instantly if things go south. This data room becomes the absolute epicenter of the deal and the due diligence process.
So the data room is essentially like getting a structural survey on a house you have already fallen in love with. Like you really want to buy the house, but you need to know if the foundation is rotting before you hand over the cash.
That is a brilliant way to look at it, because due diligence is where the absolute truth comes out. Sellers lie by omission all the time, sometimes even unintentionally.
Like that online business owner in the sources?
Yes. There's a case in the sources about an online business owner trying to sell. He confidently claimed in initial meetings to have 20,000 regular users.
Which sounds amazing, like a really solid, recurring customer base.
It does sound amazing, until the buyer gained access to the data room and ran the analytics during due diligence.
And the structural survey revealed the foundation was made of sand, right?
Totally. The seller was counting every single raw, unique website visit, including random bots and accidental clicks, as a regular user.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, the actual number of engaged returning users was a fraction of that 20,000.
So as a seller, my data room needs to be bulletproof and accurate. But practically speaking, how do I handle the physical reality of due diligence without my staff getting suspicious? I mean, if strange accountants in suits start walking around my office measuring the floor space, People are going to talk.
You have to build a firewall between the deal and the daily operations. You keep all meetings off-site. You brief your own lawyers and accountants on the absolute necessity of discretion from day one.
And what if they need to see the premises?
If a buyer needs to do a physical site visit, you schedule it for a Sunday morning or late at night. You just have to keep the circle of knowledge as small as possible for as long as possible.
This actually brings up an aspect of the sources that genuinely made me anxious just reading it.
The emotional toll?
Yeah, because you can lock down documents with passwords and you can schedule meetings on a Sunday, but you cannot put an encrypted password on a human being.
That's very true.
Carrying a secret like this for 3, maybe 5 months, it just sounds emotionally exhausting. I mean, if I am the owner, I have people on my team who help me build the company from scratch. We've been through everything together. Lying to them every single day just feels like a massive betrayal.
I completely get that. And that emotional pressure, that guilt, is consistently one of the hardest aspects of the entire process for a seller. It literally eats away at them.
I can imagine.
Sellers constantly try to rationalize relieving that pressure by confiding in just one trusted person. The sources highlight a classic example of this. There was an owner who desperately wanted to tell their self-employed part-time assistant that the business was being sold just before signing the heads of terms.
The heads of terms being that initial non-binding agreement that maps out the deal, right?
Correct.
And they just wanted to give the assistant a heads up out of respect, which, honestly, I totally understand wanting to do.
It feels like respect in the moment, but it is a fatal strategic error because the mechanics of human nature just take over.
What happens?
Well, you confide in the assistant. The assistant feels burdened by the secret, so they tell one trusted colleague just to vent.
And then that colleague panics.
Exactly. That colleague panics about their job security and tells the rest of the team. Suddenly, the whole floor knows.
And then what? Does the staff just walk out and protest?
Usually they don't walk out immediately. What happens is actually much worse for the business. Morale completely collapses. People spend their days updating their CVs instead of working. Productivity drops off a cliff.
Oh, because they're all just terrified they're going to be fired by the new owner.
Right. And then competitors catch wind of the instability and they start poaching your best talent and your best clients. The value of your business is actively destroyed before the ink on the contract is even dry.
That is brutal.
And think about the buyer. When the buyer sees that key staff are jumping ship during due diligence, what do? They drastically lower the purchase price, or they just walk away entirely.
Or keeping it an absolute secret is actually the only way to protect the staff's jobs and the company's future.
Yes, exactly. Premature transparency just creates months of paralyzing uncertainty. Confidentiality is the shield that protects everyone, even if it feels horrible at the time.
Okay, I hear that. But eventually they have to know. So when is the right time to tell them? And how do you do it without causing a mutiny?
This is where we see a brilliant, albeit slightly ruthless, strategic maneuver. It's often called the fridge strategy.
The fridge strategy. Okay, I'm listening.
You time the staff announcement perfectly, usually about a week or two before legal completion. You have the buyer come in and host a staff meeting alongside the seller, but it's framed purely as a highly positive, collaborative sales pitch.
How does that actually work in a room full of nervous employees?
The buyer introduces themselves, assures everyone their contracts and conditions remain exactly the same, and then asks a simple question. What do you need to make your working lives better?
Okay.
The staff might hesitate, but someone eventually says, well, we really need a new fridge in the staff room. The old one is broken. The buyer smiles and says, yes, absolutely. We will have a new fridge delivered next week.
Okay, everyone loves a new fridge. I get that. But how does this help the seller?
That's the secret upside. It doesn't help the seller. It provides massive leverage for the buyer.
Wait.
Consider the psychology of what has just happened. The staff are excited. They are on board with the new owner. Crucially, the current owner has just stood in front of their team, crossed an emotional point of no return, and handed over the crown. They have mentally checked out of the business.
Oh, wow. I see where this is going.
Right. Let's say it is now 3 days before completion. The seller's lawyer suddenly gets aggressive. They demand a personal guarantee, or they try to alter the payment terms at the 11th hour.
Which happens a lot, right?
All the time. But now the buyer can look at the seller and simply say, no, in fact, if you push this, I am walking away entirely.
Oh my God. because the seller can't go back.
Precisely. It is essentially an emotional hostage situation.
That is ruthless.
It is. The buyer knows the seller cannot stomach the humiliation of walking back into that office and telling their excited staff, sorry, I blew the deal over a legal technicality. There is no new fridge, and I am still your boss.
The sunk cost fallacy takes over.
Yes. The seller's ego is completely trapped, and it forces their hand to accept the buyer's terms and get the deal over the line.
That is staggering. It highlights just how much of this is a deep psychological game. So leverage and discipline keep the deal alive. But what happens when a buyer comes in with zero discipline and pure ego?
Things get very messy.
Yeah, the sources have a story about a golf course that feels like a masterclass in how not to do this.
Oh, the golf course. It is the ultimate cautionary tale of what happens when ego overrides due diligence.
Walk me through the mechanics of this disaster. Because a buyer goes in and buys a golf course and hotel out of insolvency. What actually happened here?
Well, the buyer explicitly admitted they wanted this business purely for ego and status like. They just wanted to be the guy who owned the local golf club.
Right. Sounds like a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they approached the insolvency administrator and bought the physical assets, the golf carts, the kitchen equipment, the brand. But it was a leasehold property. They didn't actually own the land. They needed the lease legally assigned to them by the landlord.
And they started running the business before that lease was assigned.
Yes. They went in operating under a license to occupy while waiting for the lease. Their own solicitor explicitly warned them in writing about the extreme dangers of operating a business on a premises where you don't actually hold the lease.
But they ignored it.
They completely ignored the warning, and the operational chaos was immediate and catastrophic.
The details from the cash till on day one are they're hilarious and tragic at the same time.
Right. On the very first day, the new buyer looked in the till to see what cash had come in. He found a handwritten receipt for eggs that had been delivered to the kitchen that morning, paid straight out of the cash register.
Wait, they were paying for wholesale eggs out of the pub till?
Yes, and underneath that, there was another receipt for the daily newspapers. Cash was just evaporating into petty expenses with zero oversight, and it got so much worse.
Oh, yeah, the Friday night thing.
Yeah, on a busy Friday night, a staff member put 0 transactions through the bar till for 2 straight hours.
So the staff were just pocketing the cash from every single pint sold. The leaky bucket was just gushing at this point.
Absolutely gushing.
But that operational mess wasn't even the fatal blow, was it?
No, the fatal blow was the lease. The landlord finally made a decision and outright refused to assign the lease to the new buyer.
Why? Can they just do that?
If the terms of the lease allow it, yes. And in this case, the landlord happened to have a relative who was a professional golfer, and the landlord decided he wanted to give the property to his relative instead.
So let me get this straight. The buyer has paid for all the assets, spent weeks trying to fix this chaotic, money-hemorrhaging business, and now the landlord just kicks them out. They legally cannot operate the business they just bought.
Exactly. The business immediately went into liquidation. But this is where it turns from a bad investment into a personal legal nightmare for the buyer.
Oh, no.
Just before the collapse, the buyer panicked. He transferred £30,000 from the failing golf course back to his own core telecoms company, trying to save some of his original investment.
Hold on, before we go further. The liquidator sued him for preference payments and misfeasance. For those of us not fluent in insolvency law, what do those terms actually mean in this context?
So a preference payment is exactly what it sounds like. When you know a ship is sinking and you choose to pay off a creditor that you are personally connected to, like your own telecoms company or maybe your brother's consulting firm, before you pay the taxman or the independent suppliers.
You are showing preference.
Right. And misfeasance is essentially a breach of your fiduciary duty as a director. It means you made decisions that actively harmed the company's financial standing and disadvantaged the creditors.
So the liquidator comes in, looks at that £30,000 transfer and says, you broke the law to save your own skin.
Yes. A liquidator has the legal power to look back at any payment made to a connected party over the last 2 years. They use the benefit of hindsight to just tear apart your decisions.
Which brings us to a massive practical takeaway from the sources for anyone operating a business, especially one that might be distressed or, preparing for a sale. The Big Orange Book. Explain this mechanism, because I love this.
Yeah, the buyer in the golf course story learned a brutal, expensive lesson. So now he operates with what he calls his Big Orange Book. It is a physical, hardback journal. He uses it to contemporaneously record the exact logic and reasoning behind every single significant payment and business decision.
But why a physical book? Why not just send an email to yourself?
Because it physically proves his state of mind at that exact moment in time. If he decides to pay off a company credit card early, he writes down in the orange book, I am paying this off today to reduce our interest burden because our cash flow projections for the next 6 months are strong.
Right, so he has a record.
Exactly. If, a year later, the business unexpectedly fails and an insolvency practitioner challenges that payment, asking why he moved £10,000, he doesn't have to rely on a fuzzy memory or defend himself against accusations of panic.
He just opens the book.
He opens the book and proves his logic was sound and responsible at the time. If you cannot substantiate your reasoning, liquidators will use hindsight bias to assume the worst, and you can be sued personally for the money.
That is wild. It really highlights how vulnerable you are as a director
Yeah.
if you do not actively document the why behind your financial action.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. Let's say I avoid buying a disastrous golf course. I manage my own sale perfectly. We bypass the broker. We use a secure data room. We keep the secret. And the fridge strategy works perfectly.
A textbook sale.
Exactly. Completion day arrives. The money transfers. The ink dries. What is the absolute first thing that has to happen mechanically on day one?
Well, people usually assume it is a celebration with champagne.
Right. You pop the cork.
In reality, it is often a massive anxiety-inducing anticlimax. Buyers need to be prepared for the phenomenon of the vanishing seller.
The vanishing seller.
Yes. Sellers will sit in meetings for months, promising a smooth, collaborative handover. But the moment the funds actually hit their personal bank account, a switch flips. Their phone literally goes dead. They are on a golf course in Spain, and they do not care about your operational problems anymore.
They just completely ghost the buyer on day one.
It happens incredibly frequently. That is why, as a buyer, you have to systematically secure the perimeter of the business immediately. The very first critical step before the money even transfers, ideally, is getting the HMRC and tax portal passwords.
Because if the seller vanishes, you can't pay the taxes.
It's worse than that. Those portals are often tied to the seller's personal mobile phone for two-factor text verification.
Oh, of course.
Right, so if their phone is off or they are just ignoring you, you are entirely locked out of your own company's tax accounts. The mechanical workaround you must enforce is having the seller log in on the morning of completion and set the access code to work for 7 days without mobile verification.
I see.
Yeah, this gives you a 1-week window to permanently change the administrator details over to your own team before you get locked out.
That is such a specific, crucial detail. And what about physical security?
You change the alarm codes instantly, and you physically change every lock on every door to the premises that exact same day.
See, changing the locks on day one. If I'm an employee watching the new owner change the locks, that sounds incredibly paranoid. Are we running a business or MI5?
I know it sounds paranoid, but you have to understand the reality of transitioning a business. You have absolutely no idea which former disgruntled staff members still have keys.
That's fair.
You don't know if the previous owner's family members have keys and are used to just wandering in on weekends. It is incredibly common in a distressed or recently sold business for people to secretly come into the premises after hours.
Okay, that makes sense.
You also have to march down to the local police station and change the emergency key holder details. If the alarm goes off at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, the police need to call you, not the former owner who is currently sitting on a beach aggressively ignoring their phone.
Wow. Okay, my heart rate is genuinely elevated just thinking about the logistics of all this. Let's try and pull this all together.
Sure.
If you are going to sell a business, keeping it confidential isn't just about being secretive. It is a professional responsibility that protects the actual value of the asset.
Exactly.
It means resisting the urge to stroke your ego with a public broker listing. It means understanding that an NDA isn't a terrifying legal trap, but just a necessary A4 shield. It means managing your own guilt and emotional exhaustion so you don't accidentally confess to your favorite employee and cause a massive panic.
Yes.
And if you are the buyer, it means understanding the psychology of the seller, securing those HMRC passwords before the money moves, and literally changing the locks before the sun goes down.
That captures the mechanics of it perfectly. And if we take a step back and look at the bigger picture here, there is a fundamental shift in perspective that really has to happen.
What's that?
We so often think of buying or selling a business as a pure transaction of physical and digital assets, you know? You are buying the machinery, the inventory, the domain name, the real estate.
Right, the stuff on the spreadsheet.
Exactly. But in reality, what you are actually acquiring is a fragile, living ecosystem. It is an ecosystem made up of human relationships, of deeply held organizational secrets, and of entrenched daily habits.
Yeah, habits like paying for your morning eggs straight out of the cash till.
Exactly that. Those habits and relationships are where the true risk and the true value lie. So the most valuable asset you bring to the negotiating table isn't your capital, and it isn't a brilliant new marketing strategy.
What is it?
It is your absolute discipline. It is your ability to keep your mouth completely shut until the ink is dry, and your readiness to secure that ecosystem the moment you take control.
So if you are the one throwing the surprise party, don't drop a single hint. And make sure you are the only one with the key to the front door when the guests finally arrive.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been an absolute masterclass in the hidden mechanics of M&A. That does it for this deep dive. We will catch you next time.